Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to this week's edition of Halftime Talk. I'm delighted today to be joined by Mr. Mohamed Fouad, the CEO of Egypt Oil and Gas Group and Secretary General of the Egyptian Gas Association. Mohamed, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure, and I'm very excited for our discussion today.
As are we. Well, it's great to have you, and I know that you've landed fresh off the plane from Beijing,
Absolutely.
where we had the World Gas Conference. So give us a couple of your key takeaways from that. What would you say you walked away with, and what were the top of mind concerns, let's say, of the gas industry?
Well, I think the WGC 2025 this year was an extremely important, let's say, collaboration event where we actually can understand and evaluate where the gas positions in now as we speak within the energy transition process. And it's very important within these dynamic times to be able to evaluate the role of gas as the transition fuel for the energy transition, and also get to understand our decarbonization efforts that we are working on from technological aspects, what's new going on in the market, where are the aspects that we need to focus on. And there was so much in that angle that I believe we were able to understand, lots of open discussions. And I could also say that with all the technological advancements that are going around in the world today, especially with AI actually invading the way we used to operate. So I think right now digital transformation is going to play a very important key role when it comes to energy transition and when it comes to the role of natural gas within the energy transition process. So I think these were all different aspects that have been discussed, which was very interesting to see and how we can move forward after WGC as an industry together.
Yeah, I mean, energy transition, of course, has been the key buzzword in the last 5 to 10 years, and gas has always been identified as the transition fuel. There has been in recent years, post-2020, post-Russia, Ukraine, the nervousness about gas supply, etc., and even energy security as in general. Do you feel, was there any vibe, do you think, at the conference, not specifically for gas, but that the energy transition is being challenged a bit in terms of the agendas of certain countries to move too fast on it? You know, that we need to always obviously guarantee gas and oil first and then move to transition to greener fuels. Was there any hesitancy that you felt in that, especially from an investment point of view?
Absolutely. And I think it not only in WGC, but I think in maybe since a year right now, we see that there was not a clear understanding of renewables and how they can actually dominate or exchange between fossil fuels and renewables. And I think the Russian-Ukraine conflict played a pivotal role in the process, which did not give a proper time to actually evaluate the energy transition process. And we saw last month what happened in Spain and France from the electricity cut, and how the grid was affected based on the renewables and how gas played the role in stabilizing that grid. I heard yesterday the same thing happened in France.
Oh, I didn't hear that.
I did read something about that yesterday, also the same thing that happened. So I think there is a clear understanding that energy security is key, and sustainability is important. But I think where we stand today is, if we're talking about sustainability, if we're talking about reducing emissions from our energy sources, sustainability is not only about being green, it's also being secured, enough energy sources, and affordable too. Renewables, new energy sources from different angles, yes, they do play a good role, but I think we still need more time to make it much more affordable and available for everybody. And we can't be talking all the same language. We can't be pressuring based on a conflict based on what's going on on different continents and nations. You can't be talking about energy transition in Africa when we have energy poverty, for
Yeah.
example. So it's a totally different language. So I
Yeah.
think yes, there's a clear understanding right now where the role of energy transition plays and how long it will you take us, and much more how you can say understandable.
Yeah, yeah, and understanding from the industry and even from the finance sector, they're beginning to understand. There was some pressure in terms of certain projects being funded that they had to be clean, and even the finance sector, from what I read, is also realizing that this is going to take time. Let's focus a bit on Egypt now, because that's obviously a very big gas story. You're the third largest gas producer by reserves, at least in Africa. A lot of potential there, but it has faced some serious challenges in its gas production output in recent years. So much so that now you're having to look at importing, for example, gas and LNG. Let's start by asking you why you think Egypt has sort of come against a sort of a roadblock in terms of its production and output, and what you identify as the problems there, and what solution could be come forward.
The industry right now where we live today, I mean the whole globe, everything is connected. Every country is connected. Every country is affected, if it's positively or negatively, in different ways. And the recent war that happened in the past 2 years, especially when Russia and Ukraine started, and then you have the Gaza war, that definitely affects countries like Egypt in a way. And with putting our priorities based on that aspect on a country like Egypt, where we are in a position of building its economy, it did affect us in different ways, and it did affect the investment portfolio in the energy sector. I think the main effect that we had is that we did not actually stabilize the investment within the country itself. Especially in oil and gas, you need to continue to drill more wells. The more you drill, the more discoveries you make, the more production you're able actually to take in place. Without that, guys, your production will go down. And of course, no investor, no oil company, no gas company will continue on drilling if they're not actually financially feeling stable within that country. And we did have financial crisis in Egypt in those years. And that financial crisis did affect the energy sector. So investors had to slow down in their investment and in their operation. But I have to say that the new government in place that started from last year, July, and with the commitment of the higher caliber of government participants right now, we can say that there is keen on not going back again to where that happened before, whatever the situation is, whatever crisis we face, because I think the invoice we're paying today in importing gas is much more higher than if we were able to actually overcome those challenges in different ways.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're saying so the long-term investment will hopefully be sort of reinvigorated, and the sort of confidence, obviously, in Egypt's economy to do that. And as you said, the geopolitics plays a big part in that. We see that across the world in terms of investment, confidence. But in the interim, just like you said, you have to get that gas in. You've got to keep your electricity going. We have summer coming up, and a lot of power demand. And there's many articles every day in the news saying Egypt's out to buy 20, 30, 40 LNG cargoes. That costs money, as you said. So how are you bridging from financially? How is the government going to bridge that sort of finance gap? As you said, economically, it's not in great shape. Will that be achievable to get the gas and LNG that Egypt needs?
Yes, it is, and we already signed on several agreements regarding that aspect, with Turkey, with Shell, and I think we are secured from assuring that our higher gas consumption, especially during the time of summer, which peak time, we do not face any electricity cuts that we did have in the past 2 years before. So I think that is secured, but also at the same time, we need to make sure that we are aligning our energy security supply with continuous progress on also drilling more wells, reproducing, bringing new discoveries into place, and this is very important. This is going to happen. Egypt has been always, in a way, very committed to its partners. And I think there is trust between the partners and the Egyptian government, because we always fulfilled our promises. And although Egypt has faced so many challenges before, in the past 50, 60 years, and recently, of course, our revolution was 15 years ago, and still we were committed to our partners. Maybe, yes, we do take some time and challenges do face, but at the end we do commit to what our commitments are. We deliver in the end.
Yeah.
But when challenges like this happen, it takes a couple of years to get back on stage again. So I think to realign where our gas production is, to come back as an energy hub where we can export our gas, assure that we have enough supply from our own production, it will take you another 2 years until that happens. So
Okay,
we
yeah,
need to have
I was
that
going to ask you about
balance.
the timeline, because obviously, so you're saying you will reach out to even new partners in that process, but it'll take another couple of years. So then we're looking at technically another couple of years of also more sort of LNG imports, but also that you are looking at upgrading your infrastructure to help with that floating LNG storage units, if you like.
Yes.
From that point of view, let's say the money you have the investment coming in. Is the priority going to be going into drilling those wells, or also into sort of LNG infrastructure, i.e., keep that backup secure?
Yes.
From an infrastructural point of view.
Yes, and that's very important. Not only an infrastructure point of view, investment is important for Egypt. It's important for the whole region, especially
Yeah.
the Mediterranean, because we are the only country that actually has those LNG infrastructure to be able to export to Europe to use from neighboring countries. So I think the upgrade of LNG facilities within Egypt are important, not for all the countries. And I know that there are ongoing discussions with companies like Shell. The Shell's president was actually just visiting our president yesterday within that scope of work. So there is an ongoing discussion on that aspect. And it's very important to be able to balance between those, is to align on the different policies and to make sure that we are dynamic, we are attractive, we are committed into what our promises are, because our region is very, very dynamic, and it's very sensitive also at the same time. So if you want to compete, you need to bring in more investments, and we have so many investments that are going right now within our upstream sector, which is very important, from ExxonMobil's to Chevron's, Shell's, Eni.
Would you say that the Russia equation has helped in that aspect, i.e., the uncertainty over future Russian gas? Yes, Europe has continued to take Russian gas, obviously, but pipeline gas has decreased. We don't know when that particular war is going to end, and the trust in Russian gas has been impacted. Is that an advantage for countries like Egypt and Libya, do you think, looking a bit more medium, long term, as a more reliable source?
Definitely. Russian gas to Europe went down from 24% to 19% last year, 2024. So the dependence on natural Russian gas to Europe is decreasing. Where we strategically are positioned, Egypt and Algeria and Libya, North African nations mainly do play, it's a great opportunity for them to play a very important role. And it has always been a strategy for Egypt for almost 10, 15 years to be the energy hub for the region. And this is where we established and co-founded the East Mediterranean Gas Forum, where countries like the North African countries and Cyprus, Greece, Israel are playing a very important role, because there's so much potential in the East Mediterranean arena.
Cyprus has taken, I mean, we were covering this actually quite closely for a while. And then, of course, the whole East Med gas equation took a bit of a downturn. And again, geopolitics plays into that sometimes. But how is the Cyprus angle? They're not representing Cyprus, I recognize that. But there's been a lot of negativity over those plans from Cypriot professionals and experts. Would you say that they're struggling a little bit to meet the initial optimism on that?
I think the amount of resources that exist in Cyprus is huge. It requires a lot of investment. It requires lots of collaboration between, let's say, the private sector and the government. The infrastructure is not there yet, and we need to work on that. And I think there are let's say, an agreement between Egypt and Cyprus to support within that infrastructure between Egypt and Cyprus to help them actually export that gas from their fields into our LNG facilities for exporting to Europe. So I think that's going to happen soon. So it takes more time. And this is where EMGF, organizations like EMGF play a very important role between governments, between private sectors, the educational, technological transfer of information to understand what can be done to create a proper balance between supply and demand. And I think this part of the region, going back to your question, this part of the region plays a very pivotal role in assuring energy security for Europe. I think there's so much potential for North African countries. There's so much potential for the East Mediterranean. There's so much potential that has not yet been discovered. There are untapped reserves in the Mediterranean that have not yet been discovered. So I think
a lot of potential, absolutely. And what about one competitor, let's say, to North African gas players, not competitor, but it's always been there, the US LNG. Of course, we had, because the Russia equation triggered Europe taking in more US LNG than it was before. That's continuing to flow as far as we know. Do you think that will continue to be the case, or could you see that the North African players will again in time take a chunk of that LNG that's coming across the Atlantic for Europe?
Hopefully, yes. I think LNG in general plays a very big role in the supply and demand globally. We've seen an increase in LNG demand in the past couple of years, and we see that it's doubling in the coming years too. So I think LNG is going to be a key element of supply. But I think the balance between also decarbonizing our LNG, the technology balance, and is going to be also very important within the energy transition process. Listen, I have to tell you, we live in dynamic days. What we speak today, you and I, tomorrow we might be going into a totally different direction. So it's very interesting where we stand today. But yes, according to where we are, I think gas will continue to play a very, very important role. And I think gas will present at least 25% of the energy mix until 2050. So it's important. LNG is going to be a key in that aspect. Saying so, yes, the North African region definitely could play a very, very important role when it comes to LNG, definitely. But more collaboration, more stability in the region, more policies to attract more investments are required to make that happen. And I think definitely that will happen sooner or later.
And I mean, just one more question, Mr. Fouad. On that investment front, obviously these companies like Shell that you've mentioned, ExxonMobil, they're also oil companies, and they get their revenue also from obviously oil drilling and sales. And of course, we've seen the oil price take a bit of a hit this year, down to about $60. And the forecasts are that we're not necessarily going to see any uplift in that, given Chinese demand, etc., and global economic forecasts. Do you think that lower oil price range is here? If it's here to stay, will impact investment outlook of those companies, or is it all guns blazing for gas going forward, regardless?
Exactly. You just said what exactly I was saying. I think there is a transition all these companies right now within moving to natural gas as a transition phase, and we see lots of companies like the Shell, Eni, Chevron. They all are looking into investing into natural gas exploration and production. They are looking into that aspect more than oil. Give you an example for Shell. Shell was a very major player when it comes to oil production in Egypt. So Shell sold most of their onshore assets, which are based on oil. And now they're more focused on Mediterranean exploration and production, which is more focused, of course, on natural gas. So I think that aspect is happening. And I think we will have a transition of our reliance on oil-based products more than the natural gas. But we need to give some time to understand how that works.
Mohamed Fouad, CEO of Egypt Oil and Gas Group, thanks so much for joining us today on Halftime Talk. It's been great to have your thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and wish you all the best. I'm a big fan of Golf Intelligence, and I
Good
do
to
follow
hear.
you well. So all the best, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone again for tuning in to Halftime Talk. Of course, playing every Wednesday at 12 p.m. We look forward to you tuning in on a weekly basis. Thanks a lot.